it just like a church session. Julie Bertha, rap God, I am her blessing. Ha! Won't he do it? It's that holy music. They try to mute it, but I rebuke it. It's therapeutic. It was already written, so I don't gotta write it. I was already gifted, so you don't gotta like it. Showing me and I am not excited. Adam was tempted, it's crippling. He didn't want to bite it. Get off Instagram and get some discipline.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to The One. Real people, real topics, real talk. Today's show is entitled The Right Allies. And I'm both honored and excited to have our special guest on the show today. During this episode, we're going to provide our allies on information on how to be more effective allies, because what I see across the board, role-playing racial theater, you know, somebody will post something, a Black Power fist on Facebook, say, "Oh, I've did my job." So one of the key things we're going to do, not only we're going to provide, I have the top 5 things that allies can do to be more effective. We're going to definitely hear from Annie, who's a champion for change. She's killing it. Absolutely. So without further ado, I just want to introduce one of our newest members, located all the way from Pennsylvania, Annie Caplan. Hello, Annie.
Hey.
Did I pronounce your last name right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
That was perfect.
Annie, first, just a backstory. I came across Annie through a Zoom conference I was doing on racial injustice with the UUA Church, which is Unitarian Universalist Association. Did I say that right?
Yep.
And that guy, I think I told you that when I looked at the screen, she was the most in tune.
Yep.
She was the most like I could tell that she was receiving my message. And one of the things the more powerful after that, she reached out and emailed me, and through the email I said, "Yo, she the truth." And the way I described Annie it was like I told her it was like when Morpheus realized Neo was the one.
Yeah, you did say that. Yep.
Yeah. So from our communication back and forth, I realized, okay, she's the one. She is different. And I was thinking about this morning. I was thinking about you, Annie. I was thinking about you got some allies that are real allies, which is hard, which is like half of 1%. The main two I think of Scott. Scott from Rock Fox, the one who's the executive producer of this show, and I think about Annie. Now, Annie, could you share with us first what made you take on this fight? You could have been doing anything else in the world.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. I feel like I've had a series of wake-up calls to just the brutal reality of racism, and they just never stop. And it's kind of one of those things that the more I learn about and the more I see, the worse I realize it is. So I just can't really look away or remove myself from it. I kind of just have to keep going further and further.
Wow.
Just because it's the only thing that feels right. I couldn't, with a clear conscience, just back out, knowing what I know now and knowing that, I don't even know what I don't know. So I'm trying to learn. But yeah, I just really, I suppose one of the biggest things that started me on this journey was an instance I had last year. I was a substitute teacher at the school that I went to growing up, and I was teaching an elementary grade class, and we were in English. So we were learning about what adjectives are, and we did this exercise where every child went around the room and said 2 adjectives that described themselves. So the kids were going around and they were saying happy and funny and kind and athletic. And I live in a very rural white area. I think we're 98% white, so it's very homogenous. And there was one boy in the class that was Black or brown. I don't know which one he identifies with, but it got to his turn. And his adjectives were dirty and dishonest.
Wow. Deep. And how old was he?
10.
Whoa.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a 10-year-old boy. So I felt like I just got punched in the gut. So I took him aside after class and I was like, okay, now you have to tell me 2 adjectives that are actually true. And he was like, well, those are true. And he's just looking down. And I was like, no, they are absolutely not. You know how I know? And he like looks up at me and I'm like, because I can see who you are. You have such a beautiful soul and you have so much love in your heart and so much light in your eyes and you are such a good person. And he, you know, kind of looked at me a little bit, but then he looked back down and I was like, and guess what? And he was starting to listen again. And I just told him that we get to choose who we are. And even if other people try to tell us otherwise, because he had had instances before where people were bullying him because of the color of his skin. So he had been, you know, told that he was XYZ simply because he looked a little different. So I said, no matter what anyone tries to tell us, we always get to choose who we are. And don't ever forget that. So I just said, so moving forward, what are you going to choose to be? And he takes a second and he says, happy and honest.
Wow. That's deep. That's deep.
So Annie, I'm as I'm listening to that story and you kind of inspiring that child, I noticed something that if I was that child back in the day, I don't know if, you know, if there was any other person besides you that could have reached, you know, me in that way.
So quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so quickly.
Because you took it from a standpoint of love yourself, be proud of who you are. And I can honestly say in this day and age, you know, let's just say from a teacher's perspective, that's not always given to Black students.
Right.
You know, because I've been there to where it's like, you are the only Black student I like. And you know why?
Yeah, that's so racist.
Because you act different.
Yeah.
You are respectable. You don't wear your pants below your
You're not
butt.
one of them.
And I'm not
That's
a
so
threat.
racist.
But it kind of gave me a sense of hope by listening to you that, okay, yes, we've chosen the right ally, you know, simply for this reason. You were willing to look through that child and see the pureness in his soul.
Right.
And so I just want to kind of know now is that how do you feel it needs to keep going from an education perspective? Do more teachers need to be trained? Do they need to even have more empathy for this stuff? Like, I really want to know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think so many teachers are just some of the best people I've ever met. I think there are so many incredible teachers and their hearts are generally in the right place. But we all live in a white supremacy. We can't
Absolutely.
deny that. So even if you're an incredible person, you were born into a white supremacist society. All of the media and books and films and TV shows that you've been exposed to have been like embedded with white supremacy.
Yep.
We've really been just getting hit from every angle possible with white supremacist ideologies and teachings. So it's impossible, I think, to live in this culture and not absorb some of that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Now, Annie, you are a member of UUA. Excellent choice, by the way.
Yeah, well, so I just started going to their services this year. I was originally, some of the women in their anti-racism committee invited me to their ARC meetings, and I got to know all of them. And they were just, some of the greatest women that I've met.
Yeah, and I think, Jonathan, you asked me the other day, like, you was like, have you met Annie? I was like, no, I've never met Annie face to face yet. But all the other women I knew from speaking in the UUA churches. And the reason I said you made the right decision is because I remember the first UUA church I spoke at was the one where you're a member at. And I remember I hadn't heard of it before. Prior to being contacted and asking would I come there and speak. So naturally, I did my research. I had to do my research, find out what it's about. And I was immediately floored. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I said when I stood up and spoke, I said, I've never heard of you guys before I was asked to speak here, but my research showed me that you're the only religious organization that's the real deal. Mm-hmm. The only one. Mm-hmm. The only one. And so now after all of these years, I've re-engaged, especially with my communication with Annie and when I did the Zoom with the the other members, mm-hmm. where they were 6, 7, 8 years ago, their mindset is exactly the same. Their fight for justice, their fight for equal rights, their fight for these different disadvantages that are put on society, mm-hmm. and a lot of those disadvantages, like Annie spoke about earlier, is through the whole well-oiled machine of white supremacy. Mm-hmm. But the UUA organization is the only church that openly stands behind these. Like even now, you go on their websites, the individual church, they talking about Black Lives Matter. You go on the main website, the UUA website, the main one, mm-hmm. they don't hide it. And what the reason from the very beginning I've always loved them is because they are fighting for something that Black churches won't even fight for. Pastors won't, and the word and you remember me using this word in the conference, social gospel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Black churches won't even do that.
And you know why they won't do that? And I don't care how
and you know this, yeah, you're an expert on this, absolutely.
I don't care how controversial this sounds. Black churches, Black pastors have now been sellouts.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I feel comfortable saying
they're the biggest problem in the Black community. They're the biggest problem.
Because Black lives don't matter until it makes mainstream news for them.
Right.
So the UUA church has always been, in my mind, like, okay, at least they doing something.
Right.
What you guys sell in a Black church is just entertainment.
Yeah.
From the messages that you speak, from the poetry and all of that. I said, you are leading your people straight into hell. And like I said, I don't care how controversial that sounds. It's the truth.
Right.
All you know how to do is get behind a protest, get behind a mic, a camera, whatever makes you look good to have an agenda. And so many of them will say constantly all the time, we are fighting politically. And I want to say that is the biggest bunch of BS I've ever heard from Black churches.
Right.
You aren't doing anything but keeping your people oppressed.
Yeah, because I'll take a guess in 20 years, it'll be hard to find a Black church.
Absolutely.
In the next 20 years, it'll be hard to find one because the impact they think they have on the community, we got more power in the community than the Black churches do.
I mean, just in Rochester alone, what, over 700 churches?
Yeah, we got more power. So, even in that conversation, even with Annie being a part of UUA, like, and it's funny, even how you met them through something that had to do with racial justice. Am I right?
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly. I was just a part of that group.
And when you told me that before, I was like, it makes sense. And one thing that's different about you is because when I went and looked, and I think I shared this with you, Jonathan, when you see the marches, Annie's in the front with the sign. Mm-hmm. When it's time to speak, she's the one standing on the what you call in the middle of the park talking to all the people. So you are a diehard when it comes to racial justice, when it's come fighting for what's right for Black people specifically. And is it hard for you to see, because I've seen situations where whenever you talk about white supremacy and racial justice, some white people can't receive it because the perpetrators are white people. So the individual, when they hear about it, it makes them feel like, why are you talking about white people? Mm-hmm. But it's not all white people. Right. How do you balance that? First of all, have you ever been in a situation like, I'm taking this personally because that's me?
Oh, totally. And yeah, I mean, I feel so much like shame and guilt as a white person, knowing just how much damage white people have done. But I suppose like that motivates me to just really own my own white privilege and examine my own internalized racism. Because yeah, I definitely, it's very uncomfortable to know the type of society that I live in. And to know that I am like a player in that.
Right.
But I just try to think about it in the sense of, if this is uncomfortable for me, like how uncomfortable must it be to be on the side that is being oppressed?
Right.
So I just can't even like feel bad about it, because it's just like, this is the least, I feel like it's the least I can do.
And you know what? Because what I'm hearing from you, you're saying that you realize the problem is bigger than you, so you can't take it personal.
Yeah. And I suppose there's no point, like it's not constructive to, it's like we are like all in this together. So I might as well just look at where we are now and see my role in it all, and then just ask myself how I can get better from here.
And another way, another reason why I have to applaud your efforts, and back again to UUA efforts, because I remember even when we did the phone conference, the Zoom conference thing, you know, one of the biggest issues they had was they're doing this in rural Pennsylvania. So they're getting to the point where people are verbally attacking them to the point where they feel like they're about to be physically attacked. And it makes sense because in those situations, when you talk about prejudice and racism and all that, you're absolutely the minority. So I can see it's easy. Have you ever been, because you're so active doing it, have you ever been in situations that you felt that your safety was of a concern? Because I remember in that conference, you know, they were wondering, okay, what can we do when we have the people approaching us and all that? And, you know, and I was like, hey, we'll come down and show you. You know, we'll come down and show you how to, because there is ways to circumvent that without being physical.
Right.
You know, they say power perceived is power achieved. And so, telling you that guy in that Zoom conference, I was like, listen, I can teach you exactly how to do that without pulling out a gun and raising your hand.
Right.
Even with that against you, what keeps you fighting? Because you can easily say, no, this is too dangerous. Anything could happen to me. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with that. Because I think we spoke to you pretty soon after I had organized like a demonstration to talk about this. It was called Shine the Light on Racism, because I really thought we as a community needed to get together and just at least start by talking about what's going on. And yeah, it was an event, and it was like also a children's event in a park. And the amount of death threats that like we received, like
right at that moment.
So leading up to it, when it came down to it, only about a dozen like counter protesters actually showed up. But there were like over 100 people like on Facebook talking about it and everything, and getting like their biker gang group together, which like literally only 2 of them I think came. So they weren't very good at organizing, but yeah, there was a lot of hate just for that. So it was definitely so scary. I was like shaking just on my way to it. But I don't know, I guess I just didn't feel like it was something that I couldn't not do. And I prayed a lot. So I was just asking Jesus to give me all the strength I needed, and it must have worked, because yeah, looking back at it, it seems like it's something that I would have like been so scared.
Absolutely. And when you know, all of you were having that discussion with me, I'm like, you know, you're definitely in the area where anything could happen to you if they were serious. And now that you're telling me that you guys had got all those death threats prior to even doing it, and you still went ahead and did it, that's powerful.
Yeah. I say it's powerful because I look at it from this point of view. with any plan, with any truth, it has to go through the verbal abuse. It has to go through the violent oppression. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be physically hurt in the process,
Right.
but the death threats are that violent oppression.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the last phase is acceptance. So, Annie, you and everybody else have gone through those two phases already and have now come to us. Okay, we've met. We have now showed unity in this moment.
Right, absolutely.
So there's an acceptance there, and nobody can deny it. I said, so each and every plan that goes forth here on out, it's gonna go through those certain phases. The death threats come, the verbal abuse comes, but one thing they can never deny is that our presence is now being accepted.
Right.
Because people are tired of hearing the same old rhetoric of, okay, we need to stick together. No, in this moment, in the season of this is the season of the unknown here. You have the UUA church, We Are One, now pairing together.
Right.
And so everybody's like, okay, what's We Are One? What's the UUA church? Why are you guys partnering with them? Because action is going to, attract action at this point.
Absolutely. And I'm glad I like how you put that together and to come back full circle, because you and I both know, because we're in this movement every day. We spent our whole morning this morning with the kids. We had BJ's, we buying food for the community. We spent our whole morning out preparing for the community. And because we are only about action, which is why we don't partner with anybody else. That never crosses our mind. And so, in our conversations, like I think it's a little over 1,046 UUA churches, we reaching out to every one of them. We're going to talk to every one of them. And every one of them says, yes, we want you guys to come. Me, Jonathon, and Annie, and whoever else she bring. We get on a plane, train, automobile, horse, and we go in and stand in front of them. And what makes this timing so unique is we're going to be able to take people from that fire they have inside and put it to action. And that's one of the things that bothered me about the UUA situation, because the ones I know are great people.
Yeah,
all the different UUA churches are absolutely great people who want to do something. And when I looked, this thing I discussed it, and it's 8 years later, and they're still at the same stage, but at no fault of their own.
Absolutely,
it's because no one has says, listen, I see the fire you guys have. Let me show you what's next. So I think that everything happens for a reason, and we've come back full circle. Like you said, UUA, We Are One, and definitely we're the what next. And we aren't, to put it a mile way, to say it again, you and I both know we don't partner with nobody.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't meet with nobody. We ain't trying to talk to nobody, because everybody is playing. But once again, UUA is different, and they are absolutely lucky to have you, Annie. They are absolutely, because even when I researched and looked and I saw the videos and whatever, you're leading the pack. You see her.
I mean, I just feel like I'm lucky to have them. Like, I could not do it alone. So they've definitely helped keep that fire in me alive.
And like I said, I know them, so they're some good people, and they've been in this fight for a long time. And the great thing about it is not just them, that UUH, it's all across the country. They all want to be in the same fight. They are unifying for the same fight. They just need to be taught how to cross over and put that drive inside into action, where they can, where the change is tangible, where they can see it and feel like, yeah, I made a difference. Because
they've realized it's not the size of your army, it's who you're going into battle with.
Right, absolutely.
And so literally you have them right now, with each other, sticking behind the same causes
for years.
There's no division, there's no anything. Even if they did come to a disagreement, you would never know it, because they are about showing real unity, real action. And so, Annie, I see you as the complete leader of all that. And I can't thank you enough, because, from our standpoint of when this was first started, this journey was first started, it's like, okay, we can get, this church, we can get this organization.
And they ain't trying to do nothing.
I can't tell you how many emails, anything was sent out. But it came to that one conclusion, is that some people really just want to be in this for entertainment, so they can have their name on it. And I said, it baffles me to this day. I can hear a whole bunch of pastors talk amongst many community members and encourage them.
And you hear it directly.
And then leave and say, the poor take advantage of themselves.
Yep.
They don't want anything. And they're hypocrites. And it drives me insane.
Listen, I'll say it again. Annie Caplan and Scott Fitzgerald are the only two who's really about their business when it comes to and I was thinking about it kind of remind me the conversation I had with Annie through the emails, and Scott was almost the same. Like, hey, I want to help. One talk, we done. Let's go. That's all it takes.
Not 50,000 meetings.
Right. That's all it takes. If it's really in your heart, hey, I want to help. This is how I can help. This is what I can do. Let's go. And that was the end of it. And I loved it. Taking both ends, with Scott and Annie, because that's how we operate. Like, we about boots to the ground action. Don't talk us to death. Our community has been disenfranchised and talked to for hundreds of years, for a long time. Like, so, and us coming from those communities, we know, stop talking. Like, no more talking. So, I know Annie and I, in our communication back and forth, you probably thought like, yeah, he's just saying, it's like, no, you the one. You are literally the one, because going back to like the question I said earlier, a lot of times in certain settings, I'm conscious of what I say, because I know a lot of times, because when you talk about white supremacy and all that, it's that first word, that white. So you got other people who your verbiage is not for them, but because you're saying that word, they absorb that too. Like, I remember I had to put a post like, me fighting for racial justice is not saying that I like my white friends any less. And I had to put a post like that. It's like, no, if you see me post this, it has nothing to do with you. It has a lot to do with the oppressors, not my, white friends in general. And so that's one thing that when I think about a lot, and you and I have talked about this, us three bring a very unique flavor, for lack of a better word. So, we discussed how we're going to package this and carry this forward. And I think it's going to be, I know it's going to be something that the world has never seen. Because a lot of times when because as black people, well, like I said, it's sad, but we're the least to fight for each other. We ain't trying to unify. We just go like, all right, whatever happened to us just happened. And it's crazy. But this trio right here is going to be very, very unique, very unique in our journey forward. Annie, in with your mindset and what you're currently doing now, if you could change one thing right now in this fight for racial harmony, what would you like to see changed? Or what would you like to see happen?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to boil it down to one thing, I think in essence, it would just be for all of us to see each other for who we truly are. Because if, everyone did see that, the truth of who I am, the truth of who you are, the truth of who we all are, we see that we're literally all just the same thing. There's really only one of us here.
Right.
And we're all, I believe, just children of God. And however you think about God, whatever verbiage you need, we're all children of love. We're all children of light. We're all really, in essence, the exact same thing. And so I think if the people who are oppressing other people saw the truth of who they are, and that they are, in fact, the same exact thing, I don't know how anyone could continue to bring themselves to perpetuate racism and oppression. There's like nothing else you would want to do but just unite with everyone.
Right.
Because it all is just love. And I know, it might sound a little woo-woo, but
no, not at all. Not at all. It makes perfect sense.
Okay.
It makes perfect sense. And I'll say it again, and it's more received coming from you, because you're not it's not just racial theater for you. You're, whatever. And one of the key things I like about our conversation and you, which is key when it comes to the right allies, is you want to learn. You're not doing this thinking you know it all. And a lot of times, when I see people doing race seminars on diversity and all that, when I hear them say like, yeah, they ain't never talked to a black person in their life. I see something like, yeah, they don't even know any black people, but they're teaching this class in school or at this event or on Zoom on diversity and inclusion, and they don't know anything about it.
It's become too image based.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that you're trying to sell something for one that you haven't even gone through, but you won't even take the time to learn. It's like, okay, we're in 2021 now. I get tired of people acting like no matter who's in office, they are going to be our savior for black folks. Wow. It drives me crazy seeing a whole bunch of people crying. And then afterwards, after 4 to 8 years, depending on how long they're in office, they're like, well, they ain't doing nothing for us. You didn't think to research this person before you voted for them?
Or you didn't think to do something yourself. And that's why I don't care who the president, who ain't the president, who the mayor, who the governor. I don't care about anybody. I just focus on what I can do to help people. And I think that a lot of times, and you're absolutely right, because we're not serious. When I say we, I would say the majority, because the majority is not serious about change. We look at, they call it, our white savior to ride in on a white horse and change everything for us, and we don't have to do anything. That's why you saw so many people crying because Biden was the president. You know what I'm saying? But not researching, saying, he implemented the crime bill. He's highly responsible for thousands of black men being removed from their family because of his 94 crime bill. And I would tell anybody that's listening to move forward, erasing everyone else, not depending on anyone else, and just wake up and go to bed, focus on what you personally can do to change your surroundings. And 99.99% of us are missing that.
And I don't think they'll get it. And I say they probably won't get it simply because of the fact of people have had their time. You know, organizations have had their time. Churches have had their time. We're done playing with y'all.
Right.
I said, so, by having Annie here, this is a symbol of we coming in with a lot of smoke.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
you can't handle it. I said, there's a plan at hand. We are one. Meaning that we're showing unity no matter who this person or this organization may be.
Yeah, we are one. We'll take everyone. Like Andy said earlier, we're all the same person. If we really look at ourselves, we're all human. We're all one person.
And so that's a deadly combo. And all I can say now is you better brace yourselves, because whatever you got, it was long in the making, in terms of it's been written out. It's now being put to action. And the results are coming, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Absolutely.
It's a game changer.
And what I want to do, and I wrote down, there's a million, but I wrote down 5 things that I think that for allies listening who are trying to figure out, okay, well, what's my next steps? The first thing is I want to talk about, I wrote that, when people of color voice concerns, vent about issues they face or discuss oppression, you should be taking notes, meaning, and that goes back to when I said about Annie, like she's just trying to learn. She's looking to absorb. And I wrote, these concerns and issues are often a result of actions by people who look like you, so it can be easy to get defensive. Not all white people, etc. But the more challenging thing to do is to understand that these concerns are not a personal attack and trust the experiences of those who are oppressed. And that's why, when I had it earlier, when I mentioned Annie, like, what's your drive? What is making you be able to move forward and not taking it personal? Like every time I turn around, they talking about white people. And one thing at the beginning of this conversation, and it was weird hearing her say it, and she said it so eloquently when she just came straight forward, white supremacy. She clearly understands that's the root of it all, and that was odd. Because a lot of people, those are 2 words people stay away from, white supremacy, which in already that's the vehicle behind everything, behind everything that oppresses people, and not just black people. every other race, the vehicle behind all of it. Like when they say defund the police, no, defund white supremacy. Mm-hmm. That's what you defund. You make it so they can't be as global mm-hmm. as their structure are. Another number two, as an ally to people of color, it's important to use your own privilege to assist in efforts toward equality. Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time when people say, "Well, because I'm white, what can I do?" No, that's a lie. You can get more done than I can. Right. What you mean? What can? No, right. I tell them, yo, give me a call tomorrow at 2:00. I'm gonna show you exactly what you can do. Mm-hmm. You can have more effect. And I believe I shared this with you, like, dude, one white person can have more effect than 50 black people when it comes to true change. Mm-hmm. If you're taught how to do it strategically, mm-hmm. and you only know what to do, a person of I'm not going to say people of color, because that's something too is very important. It's very important in this journey as we move forward to be able to separate it, because when you say people of color, minority, and black and brown coalition, when I hear that, I hear, okay, that ain't got nothing to do with black people.
All the time. All the time.
Yeah, because when they allocate resources, okay, we're allocating resources to minorities. That means we won't get it. Mm-hmm. We're going to do a black and brown coalition, and to be 100%, there's no such thing as a black and brown coalition.
And if we do get that money, mm-hmm. it's to these corny initiatives that ain't never going to work or produce results.
And so for us to create a true black and brown coalition, that would be good because it's absolutely necessary, but it doesn't exist. One of the things about, and it could be to a fault with black people, we stand behind everything. We'll march for LGBT. We'll march for anybody.
Most forgiving.
We'll march for Latin parade. We'll march for anyone, but they won't do it for us. Mm-hmm. They recently with the Black Lives Matter thing, you see a lot of diversity in that, but I don't even want to, we're not even going to get into that whole thing. So going back to the 5 things, number 3, I have, you can't be an effective ally if you don't know what the issues are, and you can't help deconstruct institutional racism without first understanding how it is built. You got to understand it, because a lot of times we look at racism because in media, we think it's just police killing unarmed black people, but it's so much more. There's so many different ways that black people as a whole are being killed. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of times it could be over time. It doesn't have to be with a gun. Our healthcare system does it every day. I've had crazy experiences going to the doctor. Mm-hmm. Once my primary doctor went somewhere else, man, I'd have had doctors say, listen, I'm taking this blood pressure medicine and it's not working. And they take what was high? Well, try it again for 6 months. That just recently happened. I was like, yo, I'm telling you it's not working. But I see the tattoos on your arm. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? I see everything going on. I'm telling you my medicine. What you saying? No, just try it. Mm-hmm. You're taking an aspirin. Why are you taking aspirin? Because my last doctor said, no, don't do that no more.
Right.
And I remember sitting there like, yo, this dude really wants me to die. I'm sitting in the waiting room, like I'm sitting in the exam room, like, yo, this white doctor is really telling me, and that's not even a microaggression. That's just something I'd never forget, just sitting there like, oh, I miss my doctor, because she would just call me out the blue. Mm-hmm. Are you taking your medicine? Are you she all the time. But when she went to her somewhere else and I went there and they gave me that white doctor, this dude really, really was, and he it was kind of an insult because for some reason he didn't assume that I knew what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Like everything, like, okay, now I'm telling you my medicine ain't working 8 months. Well, just try for 6 more months and we'll make it. Dude, I'm going to be dead in 6 months. My blood pressure is like 190 over 96. I'm going to be dead.
He trying to treat you like Thomas Edison. If you fail so many times, it's going to work one time.
Right. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to be here in 6 months. You just took my blood pressure. You know I'm not going to be here. and so going back to that, that's why it's very important for our allies to first do research and reading and understand the whole, I call it a well-oiled machine, the whole machine of institutional racism and the different levels that it has. Mm-hmm. And just coming back to you again, your beginning conversation on about white supremacy and all that, it's clear that you've done your research.
I've tried.
Allie, it's clear that you've done your research and you clearly know what's going on. And because you're creating these spaces where other white people can understand as well, that's another thing that's important, because it's easy for a white person to sit in front of a room of black people and talk about racism. Yeah, that's the easy part. Mm-hmm. But now you go around your colleagues who look like you, mm-hmm. who, because it's just y'all, will say anything to you. Mm-hmm. That's the challenge. Yeah. And I applaud you even for creating that atmosphere and working to create that atmosphere to do that as well. That's amazing. And one of the great things I do see, and I'm gonna say it again because of UUA, once you I think you're going to easily be able to have that army behind you. And I think it's going to be easy to spread it from the various cities because they have that fire inside of them. Excuse me, like I said earlier, they have that fire, but just no direction yet. Mm-hmm.
But it definitely goes a long way. I said definitely having fire. It shows that you're passionate about something. That's what I don't see from a lot of organizations, other churches, outside of UUA, because the passion to follow through and to stick with the process is just not there anymore. Yeah. So when people love to talk about the process, I can tell you right now, I'm going to listen to the UUA church and whoever's in We Are One. Mm-hmm. I said, so that's it. Yeah, that's it. So anybody that wants to talk about unity, about following it through, I was like, I can't listen to you only because you stopped when you got to this step. Like, no, this is a journey. Right. Okay. Absolutely. This is a huge process where there's going to be ups and downs. Not everything is going to be easy. And so when I see Annie and, obviously you've told me a lot about her, mm-hmm. I'm like, shoot, that's more I've heard about
from my own people. Yeah,
that I've seen from my own people. And it baffles me every time. I'm like, why does it take them fighting for us even more to kind of, just it hurt us so bad in terms of, our people won't do anything but get behind social media, say like, I'm tired of this.
And we need to stick together. And then that's it. And you and I have had discussion before too. And I can see going back to UUA again, we're going to easily have thousands of them on board. Mm-hmm. But if we sent those same emails and those same phone calls to black churches, we wouldn't get 30. We wouldn't get 30 people. I don't know. I think that it's time for something new. It's time for something different. It's time for something that's more action based. Mm-hmm. Annie, like I said, I definitely see that in you. You put boots to the ground. Mm-hmm. And let me ask you, when we first started communicating outside of the conference about this, I know you did your research on us, mm-hmm. Our movement and all that. What is it that made you, because you could have said, like, no, I'm going to just stay what I'm doing. I'm not going to be bothered with y'all. What is it that made you say, okay, I'm here to learn, let's go?
Yeah, well, I guess ever since we had our talk with you, mm-hmm. and just what you said about the call for social gospel really stuck with me. So like one of my biggest goals in life is mm-hmm. to just be a vessel and be used for God's purposes and just try to put as much goodness out there. I feel like this life is a total gift. So I kind of just want to give back in any ways that I'm able to. So that is kind of where my heart was at to begin with. But then once I heard from you, mm-hmm. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I had asked you, I was just like, had something along the lines of like, how do you keep going? Like, this is heartbreaking for me to witness and to learn about and just like watch go on. Mm-hmm. So how do you just keep going with like all of these forces working against you? And you had said something like that it's just like an open book test. Mm-hmm. And, we've been here before. This is just like history repeating itself and recycling just in a different form.
Right.
So you kind of just learn what you need to and then make it a reality.
Right.
So I had definitely just been praying a lot about what I could do to eventually be able to spread more social gospel. But I didn't know exactly what I could do that would be most effective because, as a white person, I can't really understand what Black and brown people need and what would be most helpful.
Right.
But I feel like you can. And from everything I read about you and saw on your website, as you were saying, this racism is so systemic and it is literally like woven throughout the social fabric of our entire culture and country. So it needs a holistic approach in order to actually be healed. And it seems like you have a very holistic approach, and I love working with children. I think that's where it starts. And I know you do a bunch of work with kids. So,
and that's the secret that I felt that everyone was missing, that holistic approach. Like you have to attack all sides at the same time. That's the key. You have to literally attack everything at the same time. Some things go in stages. Like, for instance, like our first stage we do is in the community to build that community rapport. And what we do with our community engagement thing, we get the community focused on one symbol, this one. We have the community that when they see this one, no matter where they see it at, so they begin to trust us. They begin to know that we don't want anything from them. We just want to be servants. That's it. So during our first phase, once we do that, it's easier to say, okay, everybody, here's how we create our economic structure. Here's how we get our own businesses. Okay, healthcare. Here's how we do that. But most people want to skip that step because that step takes the longest. Building that unity in the community, building that trust, building that where they only recognize you, because people want to put up a post and say, hey, let's stick together, and they want 10,000 people to say, yeah, let's stick together where you wanted to meet at. But life doesn't work like that because we've been deceived and tricked so long, especially by our own people.
And it's evident, and I'm glad that you said that, recognizing that one symbol. Not enough people realize that, okay, just because you may have a few followers every now and then, you may have 10,000. I don't care. There's always somebody that doesn't know who you are.
Yeah,
and I guess I get tired of it because I'm like, there's so many people out here and organizations that are like, well, the community knows who we are and we know them. You can't even tell me like 5 of their names.
Right.
I said, you can't even tell me what you did last week that'll make them come back, other than, okay, if you're giving out free food, they're coming from the free food.
Yeah, they're going to come for that anyway.
They don't even know the name of your organization. It's like, oh, it's nice that y'all doing this, but what do y'all do? Who are y'all? No brand recognition, no information about the next steps.
Yeah.
It's just, here, take this. And we did our part because it makes us feel good. It ain't about you.
Right. Right. And I agree with that totally. And that's something that that we hope to teach during our journey, that if you do something and you walk away feeling amazing, then you only did it for you. It's not about how going out in the community, how helping people, whatever it is. It's not about how you personally feel. It's about the impact. And that's why it's easy to get 10,000 people to let's take Rochester. Let's say it's easy to get 3,000 people to march downtown when a police officer kills an unarmed Black man. But after those 3 or 4 days, none of those people do anything else. So what that shows me, okay, what I did makes me feel good. Whether it had an effect on the community at all, that is not important to me. I marched. I took some social media pictures. I went live. I saw myself on the news in one of the pictures. So I feel good. And that's what we're going to change. And I think that's moving forward when we're going to focus on the right allies. That's the key thing we're going to change. We're going to transition. Like, okay, let's get rid of the feel good moments. Let's do something that's impactful and measurable, because you and I have the discussion a lot whenever, like one thing we do with Player One, we research the cities, and we on the phone calls, we know the crime rate, the poverty rate, the abortion rate, the opioid addiction. And we always say that's our only competition, the statistics, the numbers. We don't care about no other organization. We don't care about what nobody doing. We care about looking at the numbers, going into a city, and then revisiting those numbers 5 or 6 months down the line and say, yeah, okay, we on the right track. Because if we go into a city and say, oh man, that felt good, we wrong.
And it just takes work. You got to put the work in. And for the listeners out there, before we got on this, show today, I had Mr. Powell and Annie grilling me about me waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. but honestly, it's because of this. I knew going into this that there would have to be, there has to be more on my part to work at this.
Right. A certain level of sacrifice.
Yes.
For lack of a better word.
And so I can't really respect any other organization or politician that's like, we not putting in the same work y'all did. We just gonna, fly by, and coast on through. I'm not accepting that anymore.
Right.
Because if you're not trying to really make a change and do at least, I'll say 75% of the work we're doing, I know you're full of it now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the key things, even with you personally. You and I had this discussion on, you come from a strong religious background where, I honestly remember you 6, 7 years old running around St. Philip's Church on Bay Street, like real young. So you grew up in the church. That's all you knew. And then once you became a part of this, and I often ask myself, was it good or bad? Because once you became a part of this, you had a disdain for the church. You start realizing, like, nah, these churches just selling hope. They ain't really doing nothing. And I often wonder, was that good or bad? But I guess because I remember you and I had a conversation, you said, no, if it wasn't for this, I'd be sitting in the front pew of a church thinking that's the way life's supposed to be. Not helping nobody, not doing nothing, just recording the service.
Keeping me oppressed.
Right, right, keeping you oppressed, right.
So to me, you, Annie, I say, it's life-changing because these are the allies I need. It's like, no, take this pathway while everybody says, okay, let's just take an example. The march and the protest are the only way. There's another route that you haven't even tried.
Absolutely.
And so when I look at you, Annie, specifically, I'm like, at least she tried it. At least she's sticking forward. There's no quitting her even after, let's just say, if it can be, perceived as a failed attempt. It's like, no, she continues to go. And I just kind of want to ask you, it's like, do you ever feel like you failed with certain things, in terms of this journey? I just got to know.
Oh, yeah, like all the time. Yeah, I mean, I constantly am critiquing myself and, going back and seeing how I could have done things better. And I really rarely, if ever, feel like I'm doing enough.
I remember you told me that.
Yeah. So constantly, I always feel like I'm failing. I suppose I really feel like I've committed to an anti-racist path. And that's something that is going to take, my entire lifetime, maybe many lifetimes. So I just know there's like not really any giving up. So I just keep trying to go on, but I definitely do feel like I'm failing all the time.
Well, one thing I can guarantee that now that you're with us, in a very short time, you're never going to feel like you're not doing enough. You're going to feel like, I don't know, I need some extra time somewhere. I need a couple extra hours in a day. And another key thing you said to this, that's deep. You said you are understanding that this is a lifetime journey. This is not nothing you can get involved in a year or 6 months. And hey, I just eradicated racism. The world's a better place. It doesn't work like that. So that's powerful right there. And the message to listeners should be, even for allies, it's not a jump in and jump out like you're playing jump rope. It's not let me jump in for a little while, then let me jump out, jump in. You kind of got to make it a lifelong mission to really see change. And as you move forward in life, and Jonathan, you and I talk about this all the time, and I do this all the time as you move forward too. you also got to pave the way for those coming behind you, and not coming behind you down the line where you can visually see people that you can hand the torch to whenever the time comes. That's the real key and the real strategy to move forward in this fight. And as you move forward, you look back and you already see the people you can hand the torch to, and they're going to carry it immediately. That's one of the number one strategies, and that's how, like they say, that's how you as long as you're in somebody's memories, you live on forever. But that's how you keep the movement and the work moving on forever, by always having somebody you can pass the torch to, and then having 2 and 3 people, like doing our discussions, like me, you, and Annie. We about to hit with these 1,046 churches, and we're gonna pass the torch to a lot of people in a very, very short time. Annie, would absolutely gonna have you on the show again 1,000 more times.
It's been great.
Any last words? Anything you want to leave the listeners with, as far as your journey, this journey, and our allies and future allies?
Yeah. I suppose one of the biggest things I've learned this past year is that I used to think I was just not racist. And I've learned that that's not really possible because this is an oppressive system. Right. You're either racist or you're anti-racist. So anything else is just being complicit in upholding a white supremacist society, essentially. So you really have to make a choice, and each one of us is a piece of that puzzle. So if we choose to come together, we can start to really see the bigger picture going on here, and what this is really all about. But we do have to choose. We have to commit and recommit and choose over and over and over again. But if we do make that choice, then we are aligning ourselves with justice, with truth, with goodness, and essentially just with what is right.
Absolutely. That guy, any parting words you want to leave the listeners with?
I think for our listeners out there, I wanna say this. You have to determine whether you want entertainment or you want real action. And if you want real action, you need to take a real hard look, start researching, start putting in the work, because that's the only way that it's going to come. And for those of you who do not believe me, let's realize it is 2021. We are still fighting the same demons that bit us in the butt in 2020. 2019, and let's just say generations before that. So if you think this is going anywhere anytime soon, it is not. And for those of you who consistently say, if I can just do my part, anything matters, that's done. That's done. That's a sorry excuse of, I'm not going to do anything.
So when you say that, instead of saying, if I could just do my part, what do you suggest?
Don't talk about it, be about it.
Okay.
Because I find that people that just say that statement won't ever do anything. So if I could do my part voting, everybody does that.
Oh yeah, I understand.
Move on to the next. So I just say, yeah, you just got to put work in.
Makes perfect sense. Well, Annie, it's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
We will talk again soon. And my parting words are the same as always: one mission, one family, one love, and we're out.
Shit is all set. I found my pace. Now these brush me. Got $1 million smile. Started with some buck teeth. Show you how to get it now. Bet you niggas trust me. Young black with a gift. That must be. Oh, we got new names. You gotta add with a gift. Add with a gift. Add with a gift. Oh, we got new names. You gotta add with a gift. Add with a gift. Add with a gift. Like Nancy with a gift. T-Dan with a gift. T-Y with a gift. B-Will with a gift. Shia with a gift. Kyle with a gift. Claude with a gift.